Hello and welcome to Talking with Thin People. I am here with Tom, and I'm going to ask him a few questions, personality style questions, and hopefully reveal something about type in the process. So, first of all, do you remember last year, Tom? Can you think of a time last year when you had some sort of unusual experience with another kid in one of your classes? For example, I might say, well, last year in one of my classes or one of my students that I was working with, um, we had an unusual experience in that she she went to a tournament and had a judge tell her that her case was too sophisticated for middle school and she shouldn't have been running it. All right, so that was an unusual experience I can remember from last year in school. But what about you?
Uh, I can't really remember anything.
Okay, well, can you tell me, have you gone to a restaurant in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month?
Yes.
Do you remember something, for example, like this that happened at the meal? Well, mom was listening to dad talk and she was opening her coffee creamers and she went to pour the coffee, but she was listening so intently and looking at dad, she missed her coffee and poured some on the table. Some little detail story like that from a recent meal. Anything we'll do, it doesn't have to be significant at all.
I ate 3 McDoubles
When did you eat 3 McDoubles?
around a week or two ago.
And is that an unusually large amount of McDoubles for you?
Yes.
After the second McDouble, do you remember thinking, can I eat this third McDouble?
Yes.
Okay, and where were you exactly? Were you in the car? Were you in
I
a
was in
restaurant?
the car after I went swimming.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, now let me ask you this. Let's say your friend Bob is really excited about playing in the tennis match on Saturday, but he's got practice on Friday. And the coach has said that if he's late to practice, he won't be allowed to play on Saturday in the match. Now, if he does play in the match on Saturday, then either mom or dad will be there to watch him play, but not both. And mom is out of town this weekend. Now, I've got one more piece of information. He arrives to practice early, on time, no problem. So, what can we conclude?
That Bob is going with his dad to the baseball match.
The tennis
Oh,
match.
like a tennis match?
So that, yeah, he is going and the dad's going to watch it, right? Okay. Let me ask you another question. Can you come up with, okay, well, I've got a new product that I just invented, okay? It's a machine that gives you a bowl haircut in just 30 seconds. So you put this machine on top of your head and it gives you a perfect bowl-shaped haircut in 30 seconds. Now, I want you to come up with a couple possible names for this product. I can't come up with any. I've invented this wonderful product, and the only name I can come up for it is hair cutting, bowl shaped haircut device. And that's not good enough. I need a snappier name for it. What should I call it? Can you come up with any possibilities? It doesn't have to be a particularly good possibility, just any sort of
cutter.
bowl cutter. Okay, that's fine. Anything else?
Circletron.
Circletron. Circletron's a pretty good name. Interesting you use the word Tron in there. Anything else?
Nothing else.
I'm sure you could come up with other things, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You're just being FE shy. That's fine. Okay, so let me ask you this then. What do you think is more important? Joanna, sit down, please, properly in your chair. You can think about how you would answer these questions too. Why do you have a black stripe across the middle of your shirt? Are you covering that word up on purpose?
No. No, it's
What
just
is
part of
that?
the shirt. That's part of the shirt. It's Peace Police.
It looks like it's a piece of duct tape.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. All right, whatever about that. So, all right. Well, let me ask you this: how many different reasons can you think to invade Mexico? Can you come up with 5 right now? Any reasons will do. Different kinds of reasons.
0.
Why 0?
Because I don't want to invade Mexico.
Okay, but how about if I asked you to come up with 5 different reasons not to invade Mexico?
Okay, I would say reason number 1, I don't want to invade Mexico. Reason number 2, because we are already proposing a threat to Mexico, the exchange difference. So if you exchange American money to Mexican money, they charge you, but in any other place they don't charge you. So if you invade Mexico, it's going to get worse. Number 3, I still don't want to invade Mexico. Number 4, I really still don't want to invade Mexico. And number 5.
Okay, can you come up with other different reasons besides I think your exchange rate idea is interesting. I'm not quite sure how the mechanics of that work, but that's fine. So you don't feel like it. That's fine. You've got exchange rate. What other reasons can you come up with?
I don't see any point in invading Mexico.
Okay, so there's no gain. What about harms? What harms can you articulate that might happen if we do invade Mexico?
I'm not into politics. I'm not into this.
Okay, fine. No problem. I'll move on from another question. You might say that the most obvious answer would be people will die, right? That's kind of a bad thing to have happen. Okay, let's move on to the next sort of questions. So, if I'm going to tell you about Joe, and I'm going to ask you, what do you think Joe is doing? Okay? So, Joe, he has a pickaxe, and he's dressed up in some sturdy clothes, and he's got a pan, and he's got a backpack, and he's got some boots on that are good for hiking. What do you think he's doing?
He's mining.
Okay, good. What does he mine? Like, what do you mean mining? Prospecting for?
Yeah, prospecting.
Okay. Interesting. So let's talk about your feelings. What do you think is more? Which sentence are you more likely to identify with? You're about to go someplace, like to a party or something, and one sentence is this: I'm not worried about how I'm going to feel about this party. I'm worried about these other people that I think might be unhappy there. And if everybody else is happy and having a good time, I'll be fine. But I have a feeling these people that I'm talking about are kind of fussy and they might complain about stuff and that might ruin it. That's sentence number 1. Or sentence number 2. Other people can worry about their own feelings. I'm worried about my feelings. And if I don't like it, it doesn't matter how good of a time everybody else is having. What matters is whether or not I'm feeling good about it.
I go with sentence number 2.
Okay. If you have multiple friends, do you think it's easy for you to determine which of those friends is a better friend than other friends? Like this is my best friend, second best friend, third best friend, etc.
Yes.
Or the alternative is you think people are either friends or not friends, and you don't really differentiate between which friend is closest or second closest.
I want to go with the first one.
You go with the first one. Okay, interesting. And do you think you have a clear understanding of how other people perceive you?
No.
No. If you wanted to, let's say you were going into the office and you had skipped school one day. Instead of going to class, your mom had dropped you off at school, and instead of going to class, you would run off to go play someplace with somebody else, okay? And you just blew out of school, okay? Now, you're going into the office, and you've been tasked, you know this office lady, you've heard that if you're super nice and schmoozy to her, that she'll let you get away with stuff and she won't report it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you feel confident that you can go in there and schmooze her? If so, how do you go about schmoozing her? Do you know what schmooze means?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think about that?
I don't want to.
You don't want to schmooze her?
Yeah.
What would you do instead? Would you just confess?
Yeah.
And what do you think would happen if you confess? She'd just be like, you shouldn't have done that?
Probably not.
Okay. Uh, how are you about doing your homework and stuff? Do you need your parents to remind you, or are you good at keeping track of that, or do you lose papers and forget to turn in homework assignments, or what?
I'm half and half. Sometimes I lose my papers, sometimes I'm on track. It's most of the time I'm on track.
Okay, and so
So like I'm not really good with long-term stuff.
right, I've noticed that you get distracted a lot in class with if you can if we're screwing around and if we're not really on point, you'll try to multitask and both sort of listen to what we're doing and play on the computer or something, right? Um, what how do you handle school? Like it's like do you get bored in class a lot?
Sometimes.
Well,
Though a lot of times we do like really fun stuff in class, like crafting or like team projects, so not
you
really.
like group work more than solo work?
I like group work better.
Right. Okay. And so what happens if you're in a group and you have to do most of their work and you feel like it's an unfair division of work? Does that bother you?
No,
Is it because you get more glory at the end?
not really.
Sort of.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Okay. So do you find it harder to do your own work than you find it to help somebody else do their work?
Yes.
Mhm. I see. Okay. Interesting. Let me ask you a couple of questions about utility, I guess. Is if let's say somebody has insisted that you guys are arguing and you're insisting that um, well like you and Jackie were doing earlier where you're saying you say no to everything and he
Exactly.
said no and you said that's a paradox, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you were arguing about something like that, but both people were very, or at least the other guy was very upset about the conversation and insisted that no, it was not a paradox. Okay.
That's me.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, but you were the one saying it was a paradox, and it was a paradox. So the point is, if somebody came back to you later and said, "Listen, when we were talking earlier, you were right. I'm sorry about that. I was really attached to it, but now that I think about it, you're right. It is paradoxical to say no to the question, do you always answer questions no? Because uh, that would imply that I do sometimes answer questions yes, but the answer itself is no. And if I don't give you any yes answers, it would imply something paradoxical there, I suppose. I don't know if it's quite counts a full paradox, but I just want to concede that. Now, what if somebody said that to you? How would you respond to it?
Oh, people are like, it's fine. I'm glad you
I'm glad you learned your lesson. Would
realized.
you
Yeah.
ever be the one to say that to somebody else? To come up to them and be like, listen, you were right.
When it's really obvious, yeah.
What's more important, being right or being careful about people's feelings?
Number two.
if if somebody says, listen, let's say somebody says something really wrong, okay? Joey says something like,
1 + 1 is 3.
something more offensively wrong than that, like,
Like,
you can't be any good at basketball because you're not at least 6 feet tall. Okay, something dumb like that. Now, um, the there are two people who are responding to that. Three people are responding to that. One person saying, "He's right. I've looked at the stats. Nobody can be good at basketball unless they're at least 6 feet tall. There's only like two exceptions in the whole world. He's right." That's one. Another person is saying, "You need to stop saying that because it's really important to him that he's good at basketball. And when you're telling him that he can't be because he's not 6 feet tall, you are trying to limit him and making him feel bad." And then the third person says, it's not true that he can't be good at basketball because he's not 6 feet tall. Because, first of all, we're all little kids. None of us are 6 feet tall. So we have to measure against each other, not against NBA players. Now, which of those three responses do you like best?
I like the third one.
You like the third one best?
Yeah.
I see. Okay, well, Tyler, I've typed you before in this class as an ENTP. And some of the viewing audience might say he seemed a little hesitant about the expert at intuition part, which is a question when I'm asking you to come up with different names for stuff and or different reasons to do things to invade Mexico. In theory, an ENTP personality type is somebody who will come up with lots of possible ways to do certain things. But the thing is, there's also an FE consideration. So more so than any of the other students, you were FE hesitant to come up here and do this because you want to make sure that you don't come off looking foolish or silly at all. That's totally typical for our type. It's important to me too that I don't come across looking foolish and silly, and you don't at all in this video. So thank you for participating in it, and for the viewing audience at home, I'm going to request that they, as well as the students here in the room, not forget to eat what?
Cheese.
Plenty thereof.